Okay, bro, there is literally no way this is actually happening. But at the same time, knowing this has happened to me is honestly really sad. But if you haven't already, make sure you guys do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already, because it seriously means a lot. And also, if you guys do enjoy the stories so much, make sure you guys join me live on Kick. I'll be streaming on there, and also I'll be doing a lot of crazy stuff with me and my friends. So make sure you guys go on there as well if you want to hear stories basically live in front of you guys on kick.com/Bubba. Other than that, let's get straight into this crazy story. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another, well, honestly, kind of depressing story. Now, I have nothing against OnlyFans girls. I get it. OnlyFans is a big thing that many girls are getting into. Like, I'm not gonna lie. If I was a girl, I'd maybe get into it. I don't know. It really would depend on my morals and who I really want to be. But I guess the easy way out nowadays in this generation for people, or especially girls, to make money is OnlyFans. And I'm not gonna lie. I knew about OnlyFans, and I remember after I graduated high school, a lot of girls in my school that I graduated with have an OnlyFans. Actually, one of them I think is hanging out with Young Gravy nowadays. Like, honestly, it's actually mind-blowing. But I remember back when I was in high school, a lot of girls that were in my school all really didn't like the idea of OnlyFans. Like, it got to the point where they were so against it, they made a trait and a promise to themselves that they would never start one. And they would also make jokes about if they started one, how silly it would be. Like, for example, they would say things like, oh, like, if I started one, like, I don't think my body's worth $13.99. Oh my goodness, literally, like, who would sell themselves like that? I might as well be a prostitute. They would say crazy things like that, and honestly, it made me think that, you know, maybe a lot of people weren't gonna get into it. But it wasn't until after high school where things really, well, flipped. I remember it was my second year of being out of high school, and I was turning 20. And I had a lot of friends that I still kind of hung out with in high school, well, somewhat, I would say. Around this time, I was so focused on making videos and stories that I didn't really focus on, well, people IRL. But basically, I remember one time, though, I was on Instagram, and my Instagram started, you know, gaining followers because of these crazy stories I would post. And actually, funny enough, if you guys haven't followed my Instagram already, I highly advise you guys go do it because a lot of updates go on there. But sorry, going on like I was saying though, I remember basically what ended up happening was I ended up getting a new follower on Instagram, except it wasn't no ordinary follower. Not that any of you guys are ordinary followers, but this certain person that followed me was honestly insane because this was literally one of the hottest girls in our high school that always, and I mean always, made fun of OnlyFans. Like, she would always, like, despite them, make fun of them, and basically said that if you're an OnlyFans person, you were literally worth nothing. So me, I remember I ended up going on her Instagram page and everything seemed normal. There wasn't any, you know, crazy bikini photos. There wasn't anything over the top. It seemed very, well, simple. So I remember what ended up happening was I ended up basically, you know, going into her DMs, you know, Bubba sliding into the DMs like usual. And I said, hey, when I messaged her, I remember she was actually in shock. She was actually amazed that, you know, a celebrity, I'm putting that in quotations because I don't think I'm a celebrity in any way, but basically she was amazed that I reached out to her and basically said hey to her, which I mean, fair enough. You know, if, you know, like what kind of person wouldn't DM the hottest girl in their high school? Oh wait, literally everyone would. I don't know why she was so surprised about me DMing her, but basically when I said hey, she ended up messaging me back saying, oh my goodness, like, Bubba, like, how are you doing? Do you remember me from high school? Yeah, I remember you. Of course I remember you. She was the hottest girl in our high school, but I wasn't gonna tell her that. And then I remember she ended up telling me, oh, like, here, like, add my number. And then she ended up literally instantly sending me her number, and me and her started FaceTiming each other. We were FaceTiming left and right, day after day, to the point where, I'm not gonna lie, I actually started falling for this girl. She was actually kind of amazing, and knowing she was the hottest girl in my high school, it was kind of a flex to be talking to her. Because remember, back in high school, yes, I did a lot of the devil's tango, but I would never actually, you know, how do I put this? Be managing to pull the hottest girls in our high school. And by the way, if my voice sounds in any way really raspy, I just want to say that I'm losing my voice from yelling all the time on stream on Kick, so please excuse it. But anyways, going on with the story, I remember me and her, we started, like, you know, communicating a lot more than I expected. And it got to the point where actually me and her, we actually went out on a couple dates. But every time we'd go out on a date, I remember every time I asked her like what she did for work, she would never really give me a straight answer. She would always say things like, oh, like, I kind of just make content. Oh, you know, I like model, I guess. And she always sounded really vague about what she was actually doing with her career. So then I remember I asked her, oh, like, are you like taking a, you know, nursing course? Because I remember back in high school, she would always talk about being a nurse, or at least that's what her parents wanted her to be, I guess. But basically she ended up telling me afterwards, oh, like, no, I'm like doing my own, like, kind of like self-employed kind of thing. At this point, I was confused. I didn't know what she was doing, nor was she ever explaining. And before anyone says anything, no, I did not know she had an OnlyFans at this time, because to be honest, she would really keep it vague with me. And also every time I would ask her about, like, you know, work, she'd never give me a straight answer, like I said earlier. So for me, like, every time I would go see her, hang out with her, she would always just be packing a load of money. And no, also, I'm gonna mention this as well, none of her OnlyFans links or nothing like that was ever posted on her Instagram. So me being the dumb guy I kind of just ignored it. And I want to say like later in the month, me and her, we were actually debating on getting together. But later in the month, I remember one time, me and her, I decided to take her to like my friend group and basically all my IRL friends. And I remember me and them, we all like hung out together at a house party that we all went to. And when we went there, I remember when I brought this girl with me, everyone, and I mean everyone at the party was looking. I had no idea why, and don't get me wrong, she was the most hottest girl there, but still, I had no idea why everyone was just staring her down. Until I remember halfway through the party, we were all drinking and stuff, and my buddy said, yo, like, Bubba, can you come over here real quick? I ended up walking up to him saying, yeah, like, what's going on, dude? Me being kind of tipsy. And then he ended up saying, yo, bro, I just gotta ask, how'd you pull her? I remember I looked at him and I'm like, you mean my girl? What do you mean? Like, how did I pull her? And then he ended up saying, oh, like, do you like usually work with like OnlyFans girls? Wait, what is what I said? At that point, I was confused. I thought he was probably trolling me. And also, like I said, I was a little tipsy. So I was hoping this was all like a joke or something. But then afterwards, I remember it was super awkward because he ended up saying afterwards, nah, dude, like, you know who that girl is, right? Like, bro, like, you're literally dating like the girl. And then he ended up saying a stage name that I'm not going to say because I don't want to give her clout in any way. But he ended up saying a stage name that was really, well, sparkly. I'll say that much. I remember I was super confused and just like kind of curious of what he was talking about until he ended up pulling up Reddit. And well, let's just say every piece of that girl's body was on Reddit. Now at this point, I'm like, holy cow. And the weirdest part was that as me and her were talking, there was a lot of videos posted from that like time when me and her started talking, right? And all of them were like, you know, BBC, all this stuff that was, well, let's just say a lot of the Devil's Tango. And like, don't get me wrong, I do a lot of the Devil's Tango. But seeing a girl get ran through like Mia Khalifa was just mind-boggling to me. So I remember after seeing that and me also being a little tipsy, I was really grossed out. I'm not gonna lie, I was kind of like ashamed of myself. I wish I knew. I wish I didn't put it aside from my brain and just actually focused on the situation when I had the chance to ask her. So me being the tipsy guy I ended up walking up to her middle of the party saying, you have an OnlyFans. She looked at me and she's like, okay, wait, who told you? And then that's when like 3 other guys ended up clapping and basically laughing because they all knew it was true. And it got to the point where everyone just started pulling up her photos at the party and she ended up running out of there embarrassed. I remember I felt bad, so I remember I went out of the party and actually left and basically just decided to sit beside her and talk to her. I told her, hey, listen, I get it, you know, I really like you as a person, but me personally, I could never date an OnlyFans girl. And then she asked me why and stuff, and I said, well, because I personally don't want my girls valued by a number. She kind of took it to heart, but at the same time, she understood because back in high school, she even mentioned herself the same exact things. But hey, what can I say? I guess people change for, I guess, the better, the worst. I don't know. At the end of the day, content is content. A job's a job. I don't know. I guess for everyone, it's different. Okay, the story I'm about to tell you guys could get me potentially arrested. And honestly, I'm not trying to get in any trouble with the FBI, the CIA, or any sort of government officials. So if you're watching this video, YouTube, understand that this story is only for educational purposes. Yes, I have to say this because I'm not trying to get in trouble. Yo, what is going on, you guys? My name's Bubba, and welcome back to another crazy but also embarrassing story. Now, today's story all takes place back when I was in middle school, and this was actually my grade 7 year. Now, in grade 7, I was a pretty basic kid, not gonna lie. I wasn't popular in any way, but to be honest, if there's 2 things I could say about my grade 7 year, was that I was a helpless romantic, and on top of that, I was addicted to video games. Like, no joke, if you asked me what I wanted in grade 7, I would probably end up saying a girlfriend and the newest next-gen console. But I remember there was this one time in my grade 7 year where I was walking around my middle school with a couple of friends of mine, and as we were walking around, there was one girl in our school that was like considered one of the popular girls, but the only reason she was popular in the first place was because she hit puberty before everyone else. So a lot of guys started to get attracted to her really easily, and she just became popular off that. As for me, don't get me wrong, when I was younger, I thought she was really hot as well. But one thing I will say was that I thought like almost every girl was hot, because if I had any interaction with any woman back when I was in grade 7, I'd probably end up falling in love with them either way, even if they just ended up spitting spitting on my face. That actually sounds really sad. Don't quote me on that. But going on, I remember when I was walking down the hallway, one of my friends ended up pointing out that there was something going on with this girl. And all of us were confused, so we ended up walking towards her locker. And when we got there, I remember she was surrounded by a group of girls, and all of them were freaking out saying, "Oh my goodness, I can't believe you actually blew up. Oh my God, are you like a celebrity now?" And all of us were really confused because like, if there was one thing I knew back in grade 7 was social media. No joke, I was addicted to watching YouTube and, you know, other social media channels like Instagram and all that stuff, which by the way, you should follow my Instagram. But I remember I was super confused on why everyone was freaking out that this girl blew up on the internet apparently. And that's when one of my guy friends ended up walking up to her saying, "Wait, what'd you blow up on?" "Oh, I blew up on this thing called Twitter." Twitter? At that moment, this is when I started to realize there was a whole new realm to the internet. Back then, I never had Twitter because, well, I was never a social media person, but now I do. And one thing I could say about Twitter is that it's a very interesting platform because there's the good side of Twitter where it's like, you know, motivational and informational and all the good stuff that you want to have on Twitter. And then there's the absolute gooner side of Twitter, which we're not going to talk about even though this channel is very sus. But at this moment, I ended up walking up to the group of girls and I said, "So you blew up on Twitter. What'd you do on Twitter? Like, did you make like a YouTube video or something?" "Oh no, I just posted a photo of myself and I'm getting so many comments." At that moment, she ends up pulling out her phone and she ends up showing us her Twitter. And she ended up going from having only like 10 followers and liking photos about kittens to then posting selfies of herself and having over 100K followers. Now, for this girl to have over 100,000 followers in grade 7 was ultimately the most insane thing ever. But I remember I ended up asking her another question where I was like, "Wait, so you just blew up off a picture of yourself?" "Yeah, I literally took like a selfie this morning in my bathroom and everyone's loving it." "Oh, okay. So you just blew up off selfies?" "Yeah, what's so weird about that?" Which, to be fair, at the time, I couldn't say anything weird about it because let's be real here, people blow up on the internet for the most weirdest reasons ever. Like me, I blew up on the internet for saying "Devil's Tango." So I really can't say anything. But I remember after that, I ended up just basically walking away from her and I ended up basically pulling out my phone, and that's when I officially first downloaded Twitter. I ended up downloading the app because I wanted to know why people were liking this girl so much and seeing if I could learn anything off what she's posting so that I potentially had the chance to be famous. Because let's be real here, everyone at a young age wants to be famous. Comment down below if you want to be famous. But I know ever since I was young, I always wanted to be some sort of internet celebrity. So I ended up downloading Twitter and I went inside my classroom and I started scrolling through her Twitter feed with my friends. And all my friends were just looking over, super confused on what was going on why this girl blew up. And as I was scrolling through, all I realized was that all the selfies of her wearing either really short shorts or tight t-shirts were the selfies that blew up. And it got to the point where I started scrolling through the comments and all I saw was everyone asking the same thing. And that question was, what's her of? At that moment, when me and all my friends read that, we were confused on why everyone was asking for an of. Like, of what? Of cup? Of water? Of what? Like, why is everyone saying of? And you guys probably watching right now are confused on why I'm saying of instead of OF. And that's because back then when I was in grade 7, none of us knew what OF was. You gotta understand, OF was like a fairly new thing back then when I was in grade 7. So for me and my friends, all of us just read it as of instead of OF. And I remember one of my friends that always tried to be like the smart one of the group ended up saying, "Oh, maybe like it's like a new like trick shotting famous like clan." "What? Do you mean like FaZe clan?" "No, but like this is of clan, you know what I'm saying? So like it's a new clan." At that moment, all of us just looked at each other, super confused on what he was talking about. But at the same time, since he was usually pretty smart, we just ended up going with it. Anyways, days went on when this girl continued to blow up, and it got to the point where, actually, funny enough, in a span of 1 week, she ended up getting to 500,000 followers on Twitter. So I remember one day after school, when I got home, I ended up walking up to my computer and I ended up searching up on Twitter, what in the world is OF clan? Or of is what I literally searched up on Twitter. And when I did, it was the biggest mistake ever because everything that would pop up were just women doing the Devil's Tango. And I started to worry because why was this popping up? Why isn't like, you know, other girls posting selfies a part of this clan showing up? Don't get me wrong, there were selfies, but all of them were very inappropriate, especially for a person my age. So I started to freak out and it got to the point where my mom even walked into my room to drop off my laundry and she looks over at my computer screen saying, "Baba, what are you looking at? What is this?" "Nothing, Mom. I was looking at a new clan." "Of women?" No, Mom. It's just a girl in our school. She joined of." At that moment, my mom didn't really know anything about social media either. So she just ended up like telling me how I should just be more careful on the internet, which I mean, don't get me wrong, that's true, but at the same time, like, mom, it's a clan, is what I kept telling her. And she just ended up walking away. But knowing what I just found out, I had a lot more questions to ask this girl. So the next day at school, what I ended up doing was honestly wild. Because I remember at lunchtime, I ended up walking up to her in the cafeteria we had at my middle school. And I walked up to her and sat down beside her and said, yo, so like, I know you've been blowing up on social media and stuff, and I think it's really cool. I just have a question. Why is everyone asking you for an of? Do you mean OF? Yeah, like, what is it for? Oh, like, basically what it is, it's like a way for like people like to pay for my pictures. Pay to get pictures of you? But you already post them online for free. Yeah, but people want like special types of pictures. I had no idea what she was talking about until she pulled out her phone and she ended up going on this app that was very, very sus. But I didn't realize it at the time until now. I didn't notice this, but basically this girl that was back in my middle school had an OF and she was in middle school. The most mind-blowing thing about all this is that the fact that she even blew up in the first place being underage and basically posting photos of herself and people asking for an OF is ultimately wild. I remember even asking her, wait, so do your parents know about this? Oh, I mean, yeah, but like they don't really check my phone that much anymore. So like they kind of do. They just knew I blew up, but they're not sure of what. Honestly, at this moment, I really did not know what to say. So I ended up just going quiet. I didn't want to say anything because let's be real here, I knew nothing about social media that much at the time when it came to at least that side of things. I want to say like at the 3-week mark, after everyone found out that she blew up on social media, I remember people started scrolling through her social media pages and saw that her pictures were getting way more too much than it already was. And I remember one day, apparently when it was lunchtime, there were a lot of old like grown men walking around the school looking for this girl. And we were all like in our school super confused on who these guys were until one of them ended up walking up to a teacher, which was my teacher, by the way, and asking her, oh, I was just wondering, have you seen this student anywhere? I'm picking her up today. And I remember when my teacher saw the photo of this girl doing a really sus pose with school merch on, let's just say 2 weeks later, this girl ended up getting expelled from our school. But this just goes to show that you should not take really bad photos with school merch. And not only that, but you shouldn't be using social media unsupervised. It could lead to a lot of trouble. Okay, so I just want to say, back when I was in high school, OnlyFans was not considered a well-known thing. Like, OnlyFans came out back when I was, I think, only 15. So knowing it came out in the year 2016 is kind of insane. But I remember back when I was in like around 16 turning 17 is when so many girls in my high school started getting into it as if they were going to be the next 1% OnlyFans star or whatever. I don't know. It was super weird. And in this story, you're going to realize how weird it gets. But before I do get into the story, make sure to do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you guys haven't already. Seriously, it means a lot when you guys do. And on top of that, follow me on Instagram. Seriously, it's the best place to go and see me, the most hottest guy in the world that pulls every girl on the planet. Yes, even your own mother and your auntie and your sister if she's of age. Anyways, going on though, let's just get straight into this crazy story. What is going on, you guys? My name is Bubba and welcome back to another insane story. So this story takes place back when I was in high school. This was, like I said, I think the year 2017. So I was 16 turning 17 at the time. And basically it was one of the most insane things ever. Because I remember almost every girl in my school was never having a problem with money. I had no idea why. Almost like every hot girl in my school had no issues with money. So in my head, I'm thinking, oh, you know what it is? Daddy's money. That was usually the go-to joke back when I was a kid. Like, oh, you have daddy's money. Oh, you have daddy's money. But then I started to realize it was a lot more than that. So I remember one time I was going through the hallway in my school and basically one of my friends walked up to me saying, yo, bro, look what I got. And he ended up showing me a photo of one of the hotter girls in my school absolutely wearing nothing, like zero clothing at all. I ended up looking at him like, bro, like, where'd you get this? Like, what? Did she send this to you? And he's like, yep, you already know. And I started looking at it and I'm like, dude, like, what? How'd you even get this? And he ended up telling me like, dude, like, I paid for it. What? You paid money to see a girl not wearing anything? That's a thing? Anyways, why did you even pay for it? It's free on the Devil's Hub. And he looks at me, he's like, nah, bro, like, it's not like that. Like, trust me, bro. Like, this is like a deeper connection with the girl so you can actually get photos. I end up looking at him like, dude, what do you mean? And he ends up basically telling me, yo, bro, just walk up to her and just talk to her, bro. Like, trust me. Like, you'll see what I mean, bro. So I remember I ended up going up to my friend afterwards later on throughout the day, and I basically saw him talking to one of the hotter girls in school, which was really weird to me because my friends usually would not be able to talk to the hottest girl in school. That was a common thing for us. So I remember I ended up walking up with him being all awkward and stuff, and I'm like, hey, like, what's going on here? She ends up looking at me, the hotter girl in school, and she's like, hey, so like, I was wondering, like, your friend was telling me that you're interested in buying. Buying is what I said. Buying what? And she's like, oh, just, you know, some photos. You want to sell me photos is what I said to her. She's like, yeah, like, don't worry, like, I'll charge you like maybe like $20 each. I remember I looked at her and I'm like looking at her from like head to toe and I'm like, yeah, nah, it's not really worth it. And I ended up walking away. And for some reason, since I said that, it made her go crazy. crazy, like straight up insane. Because I remember throughout the entire day, she ended up straight up just like walking up to me out of nowhere saying, excuse me, why did you say it wasn't worth it? Like, you got a problem with my body or something? And I ended up looking at her. I'm like, nah, I'm just not interested. And I ended up walking away. And then after that, she ended up coming up to me another time. She's like, what's wrong with you? Like, why aren't you interested? Like, I'm literally like one of the more like best looking girls in school. And I end up looking at her. I'm like, yeah, you can say that in your mind all you want. I don't care. And I ended up walking away again. She got so pissed off to the point where like, I remember after school came and she basically walked up to me as I was going to my car in the parking lot. And she came up beside me. She's like, so I'm confused. Like, what's wrong? Like, do you just don't like want to spend money on me? Is that it? And I'm like, why would I spend money on you? We're not dating. And I instantly got to my car and I basically unlocked my car with my key fob. And when I did that, she saw I had my sports car, Toyota Celica GT, and it was one of the nicer cars in school, which is surprising. And she looks at me, she's like, oh, so you already have money you don't want to spend on me. She looks at my car and I don't know what it is about my car, but for some reason girls love the car. And she instantly fell in love with my car and me. And she basically at that point was all over, bro. Like, I'm not joking when I say this. I don't know if she was a gold digger or something, but she would not stop just try to get on my eggplant, bro. And I remember I was getting into my car and she walked up to me. She's like, hey, so like, I was wondering, like, you know, like maybe you can give me some tips then. Tips on what is what I said to her. Tips on like how to be like a better OnlyFans girl. OnlyFans is what I said. What do you mean OnlyFans? I'm not famous is what I said to her. And she's like, no, like OnlyFans. Don't you know what that is? I end up looking at her and I'm like, nah, like I have no idea what that is. Like you're whack. And I ended up going in my car, closing the door and driving away. When I drove away, I remember I was just in my head thinking like, what the hell was going on? So I ended up basically just going home and hopping on Xbox with the boys. And when I told the boys what happened on that day, they all told me, bro, I think that might be an offer for you to be her manager. Her manager? I asked with like a really big question mark at the end of it because it made no sense. What do you mean by a manager? And my friend's like, yeah, like, bro, like you could straight up be her manager, man. Like you could like be in charge of all her photos and get to see them all for free. Why would I do that is what I said. Cause like, you know, I found it weird, right? And he's like, nah, dude, like, trust me, bro. Like, just do it, bro. Just trust me. Let's just say yes and say like you'll be her manager. I ended up saying, sure, like, why not? Like, I don't really care. And I ended up going up to her the next day at school and basically saying, yo, like, if you want to be like a pro at OnlyFans, like, I can teach you the way. She ended up looking at me and she's like, okay, so if you're gonna be my manager, give me a reason for you to become one. And I basically told her how I knew so much about social media and stuff. Like, don't get me wrong, now I do, but back then I actually didn't. I just made up some stuff so she would understand that I want to be her manager. And she basically said, okay, fine. Tomorrow, my house at 4:30. Okay, is what I told her. And I said, sure, like, why not? So knowing that, and I ended up going up to the boys at school and I was like, yeah, I'm going to her house tomorrow at 4:30. They all freaked out. Like, they were all freaking out going, no way, dude. Like, let's go. Yes, bro. He's like, bro, send me the photos for free, bro. Like, I really want these photos, bro. Like, they're all just on me now telling me how I should show them photos. And I'm like, dude, what are you talking about photos? I'm not even getting any. She didn't give me any. And she already said yes to being her manager. And my friend tapped me on the shoulder saying, bro, just wait, man. So I remember I ended up going to her house at 4:30 that day. And when I got there, I remember when I walked through the door, she was already wearing absolutely nothing, just straight up lingerie. And as I was walking through her house, I realized that she was posing around the house and she gave me her camera and she's like, you should take photos of me. And she ended up taking everything off. And then from there, I'm like, holy cow. So I did my part and I took photos, and no, I did not touch the merchandise is what she told me I wasn't allowed to do. But then after like the first day of me taking photos, it was really awkward knowing that. And then when I got home that day, all my friends were like basically urging for me to tell them what happened and stuff. And me, I literally told them straight up, I'm like, bro, this is so weird is what I said. Because I literally had a whole flash drive with just, you know, photos of this chick. And then basically she ended up sending me a site to upload them all on. And I started realizing when I logged into her OnlyFans account, she's made so much money off the kids in our school. It's actually kind of gross. Like literally, I could say almost every nerd and every like rugby boy in our school was legit investing into this girl, paying her almost hundreds of dollars for her to just not wear anything. At this point, I was working with the Devil's Hub star. Like it was weird to me. And reminder, this was back when OnlyFans wasn't as popular. So me knowing I was her manager, I did my part. And I remember the next day, she ended up coming up to me, handing me a whole envelope. And she gave me almost like $1,000 of just money in this envelope. And she's like, that was for your first day on the job. Good job, Bubba. And walks away. I end up looking at my wallet and I'm like, dude, like, is this even legal? In my head, I'm thinking, is this like allowed? And you know, the entire time when this happened, I was really like awkwarded out. So I ended up going to the boys and I'm like, yeah, she had just paid me. All the boys ended up seeing how much money I got and they were all freaking out again. Like it was just nonstop pop of the boys freaking out and me being awkwarded out and this girl just trying to really show me off her body, which I wasn't interested in at the time still. I still wasn't. She was considered the hottest girl in our school, but in reality, I just think she had big cherries. Like there was nothing special about this chick. And I think that in a way pissed her off. So she kept keeping me as her manager in a way. I don't know. It was weird. So I remember after 1 month of working with this chick and basically seeing every piece of her body, I was really uninterested to the point where I straight up walked up to her one day at school and said, hey, yeah, I'm gonna just quit. Like, I'm gonna be honest here. I just don't think this is a good idea. And I basically walked away. She was pissed off at first, but then she realized that maybe she didn't need me. She was making enough money without me anyway. And yeah, several years later, she's almost like the 1% OnlyFans star now. I don't know. It's weird. I'm not gonna leak her name, nothing, because, you know, it's privacy information. But all I'm gonna say is that it was one of the most awkwardest things ever. Anyways, guys, that's basically it for today's story. Make sure you do leave a like and subscribe to the channel if you haven't already. And I'll see all you dudes in the next video. Peace out, guys.
I'm still on top of the world. Never taken with your mother. Of course, let's go. Should I make it a story? Let's click record. Got that TikTok with 2 mil hit different with some more. She said she love me. She got. Should I exit for sure? I got a